The air in Pharaoh Uniz's private chamber was thick with the scent of burning frankincense and the dry dust of ages. Outside, the sun beat down on the new capital of Memphis, but here, stone walls kept the world at bay. Unas, his body frail but his eyes as sharp as a falcon's, beckoned his youngest daughter, Canute. She was not his heir. That honor belonged to her brother, Teddy, but she possessed a quiet wisdom that her father valued above all else. He dismissed his guards and his ever-watchful vizier, Tahotep, whose ambition was a poorly veiled secret. When they were alone, Unas unlocked a small, unassuming chest made of dark sycamore wood. Inside, resting on a bed of faded linen, was a dagger. It was unlike any blade Canute had ever seen. The metal was not the familiar gleam of copper or gold, but a dark, swirling gray-black, patterned like a serpent's skin. The hilt was simple, carved from a single piece of obsidian. "This is the Buen Pet," Unas whispered, his voice raspy. "The iron of the sky. It fell from the heavens long before the first king wore the double crown. It is not a weapon to shed mortal blood, Canute. It is a key." He placed the dagger in her hands. It was surprisingly heavy, cold to the touch, and seemed to hum with a faint, silent vibration. "The pyramid texts I have commissioned speak of the soul's journey, but they are a map for all to read. This is the compass. It holds the true resonance of the stars, the power that anchors our divine right. You must learn its song, for I fear others would only hear it scream." From the shadows of the doorway, Tahotep had not fully retreated. A sliver of his observing eye caught the unnatural glint of the star metal. For months, Canute's education changed. Her lessons in weaving and music were replaced with secret nocturnal meetings with her father. They didn't study battle tactics, but astronomy. Pharaoh Unas would lead her to the highest temple balcony, the star metal dagger in his hand. He taught her not just the names of the constellations the priests used, the ship, the lion, the scorpion, but of hidden, smaller stars the dagger seemed to point to. He explained that the Buen Pet was not merely iron. It was a remnant of a celestial body that carried its own memory. "The priests say we are descended from Ra, who sails the sky in his bark," Unas explained one night, the cool desert air swirling around them. "The deeper truth is that our ancestor blood was first quickened by a visitor from those skies. This dagger's metal is of its body." He showed her how to hold the dagger so that its flat side caught the light of a specific star. When aligned perfectly, the blade would emit a low, almost inaudible hum, a pure tone that made the teeth ache and the bones resonate. It was this song of the stone, a frequency that he claimed could soothe a fevered mind, locate underground water, and, in the right hands, open a channel for the pharaoh's Ka to commune directly with the celestial ancestors. Canute was a gifted student. She could find the alignment faster than her father now, her young senses more attuned to the subtle vibration. She was beginning to understand. This was not a king's power over man, but a pharaoh's connection to the cosmos itself. Tahotep, vizier of the seal and chief justice, was no fool. He saw the change in the princess and the secret audiences from which he, the pharaoh's most trusted advisor, was excluded. His spies reported hushed trips to the temple observatories and the strange, star-patterned blade that never left the princess's side. He knew of the Buen Pet from fragmented, forbidden texts he had hoarded, texts that spoke of it not as a key to communion, but as an instrument of ultimate control, a device that could bend the will of lesser men and legitimize any claim to the throne. He believed Unas was a sentimental old man, entrusting this immense power to a girl who could not possibly comprehend its true, political potential. The power belonged in the hands of a true ruler, someone with the vision to unite the two lands not just with armies and grain, but with celestial authority. Someone like him. He began to subtly sow seeds of discord. He would speak to the priests of how the pharaoh was neglecting the traditional rites of Ra in favor of some new, star-worshipping heresy. He would mention to the generals how the pharaoh's heir, Teddy, was being sidelined for his younger sister. To Teddy himself, he would feign concern, questioning the princess's sudden importance and the secrets she kept with their ailing father. Tahotep was patient. He knew Pharaoh Unas was fading. The throne would soon be vacant, and in the chaos of succession, the one who held the true symbol of divine power would hold Egypt itself. He watched Canute, no longer seeing a mere princess, but a living obstacle, a vessel carrying the prize he coveted more than life itself. The dagger was his destiny, and he would not let a child stand in his way. The end for Pharaoh Unas came not as a violent storm, but as a quiet tide receding from the shore. His breath grew shallow, his time spent awake more fleeting. In his last lucid moment, he called for Canute. Teddy was there, as was Tahotep, his face a perfect mask of sorrow. The guards stood sentinel at the door. Canute, Unas rasped, his eyes locking with hers. Remember the song. Do not let it fall silent. It was his final command. With a sigh, the spirit of the last king of the 5th dynasty departed for the field of reeds. The ritual wailing of the court women began instantly, a shrill and practiced grief. But in that first moment of chaos, Tahotep acted. He did not move towards the grieving heir, Teddy, to offer condolences. He moved towards Canute. The princess is overwrought with grief, the vizier announced, his voice booming with false authority. The sacred relics of the pharaoh must be secured for the funerary rites. Give me the dagger, child. His hand, adorned with heavy gold rings, reached for her belt. Canute, though shaking with sorrow, remembered her father's warning. She saw the naked avarice in Tahotep's eyes, the hunger that had been hiding behind his smiles for months. She clutched the dagger's hilt. No, she said, her voice small but firm. It was his final command that I keep it. Tahotep's face darkened. Seize it from her, he commanded the nearby guards. She is hysterical. The guards hesitated, their loyalty torn between the powerful vizier and the daughter of their just departed god-king. In that moment of hesitation, a hand gripped Canute's arm. It was Bayek, the captain of her personal guard, a man whose loyalty was to her, and her alone. This way, princess, he whispered urgently. Now. There was no time for mourning. Bayek half-dragged Canute from the royal chambers, moving with a speed and purpose that belied the palace's somber mood. Tahotep controls the palace guard, he muttered, leading her through a servant's corridor smelling of stale beer and roasting onions. He will declare you a thief and a traitor. We cannot stay in Memphis. Their destination was the sprawling necropolis of Saqqara, a city of the dead that offered more hiding places than the city of the living. Canute, her heart pounding, clutched the dagger, its cold weight a terrifying and constant reminder of her promise. The fabric of her fine linen dress snagged on rough-hewn stone as they slipped through a side gate, melting into the twilight shadows of half-finished mastabas and monuments to long-dead nobles. The sounds of the palace, the ritual grief, the shouted orders, faded behind them, replaced by the whispering of the wind across the sand. They took refuge in the darkness of an unfinished tomb, its walls bare of the intricate spells and art that would one day guide its owner. Bayek produced a waterskin and a piece of hard bread from a pouch. He will send search parties, Canute said, her voice trembling. He will tell my brother I have stolen a holy object. Bayek nodded, his face grim in the faint moonlight filtering through the tomb's entrance. Let him, the captain replied, his loyalty absolute. Your father, the pharaoh, gave it to you. That makes your claim more divine than his. We will not let it fall into his hands. Canute looked at the dagger. It was no longer just a tool for communion. It was a brand, a mark of treason that would have her hunted. She had to protect it, not for power, but for the truth her father had died to preserve. Her flight was not just for her life, but for the very memory of the stars. Days turned into a desperate journey south, following the life-giving Nile, but staying hidden in the harsh, unforgiving desert that bordered it. The sun was a merciless god, and the nights were filled with the cries of jackals. Bayek, a son of the desert himself, taught Canute how to find water, how to read the tracks in the sand, and how to become a ghost in the landscape. But it was Canute who became their true navigator. At night, under the brilliant canopy of the cloudless sky, she would unsheath the Bjorn pet. What was once a lesson in communion was now a tool for survival. She remembered her father's teachings about the hidden stars, the celestial markers ignored by the priests. Holding the dagger, she would find the specific alignment, the faint hum resonating not just in her hand, but in her very soul. The hum was a guide. It would grow stronger, the tone clearer, when the blade pointed towards a specific direction, not due south along the river, but subtly southeast, into the forbidding expanse of the eastern desert. It was leading them away from the populated lands, away from Thebes and Elephantine, towards a place no map showed. Bayek was skeptical at first, trusting his own eyes and experience over the magic of the blade. But time and again, when their water ran low, Canute would use the dagger, turning it slowly until the hum guided them to a hidden well or a small, forgotten wadi with a few precious date palms. He began to look upon the princess and her strange inheritance with a new reverence. She was not merely protecting an object, she was in conversation with it. She was the keeper of the song, and the song was leading them home. The journey lasted for what felt like an eternity. The landscape shifted from sand to jagged, black rock hills that tore at their sandals and spirits. They were on the verge of collapse, their water gone, when the dagger's hum changed. The single, pure tone split into a soft, harmonic chord. Cresting one final, exhausting ridge, they saw it. Below them, nestled in a crater-like valley protected by the Black Hills, was an oasis. But it was unlike any other. The water of the central pool was impossibly clear, and the palm trees grew in a perfect circle around it. At the center of the oasis, on a small island in the pool, stood a single structure. It was not a temple of their time. It was far, far older. The architecture was cyclopean, built of massive, unadorned black stones that seemed to drink the sunlight. There were no hieroglyphs of Horus or Ra, no cartouches of kings. The only marking, repeated over and over, was a single symbol carved into the stone, a star with a descending tail. As they approached, Canute felt the energy of the place resonate with the dagger in her hand. The air itself seemed to thrum with the same frequency. This was the source. This was the place her father had only ever read about in the most secret scrolls. The sanctuary of the fallen star, built by the Shemsu Hor, the semi-mythical followers of Horus in the time before time, to honor the spot where the Bin Pet's parent body had struck the earth millennia ago. Bayek stood in awe, his weapon lowered. He understood that they had been led not to a hiding place, but to a holy site more ancient than the pharaohs themselves. Here, Canute was not a fugitive princess. She was an acolyte returning to the source of her faith. The interior of the sanctum was a single, large, circular chamber. The roof was open to the sky, a perfect observatory. In the exact center of the floor was a raised pedestal of the same black stone, smooth and cool to the touch. The walls were bare save for the repeating starfall symbol. There was no gold, no statues, no offerings. The power of this place was in its geometry and its connection to the heavens above. Canute knew what she had to do. As dusk fell and the first stars appeared in the open roof, she stepped onto the central pedestal. Bayek stood guard at the entrance, a silent sentinel between the ancient world and the one they had fled. Canute placed the Bir Pet onto the stone altar. The moment the star metal touched the pedestal, the entire chamber filled with the deep, harmonic hum she had heard from the dagger, now amplified 1,000-fold. She closed her eyes and began the breathing techniques her father had taught her, aligning her own inner rhythm with the resonance of the sanctum. The world dissolved. She was no longer in the temple. She was adrift in a void of silent, silver light. She saw it. She saw the visitor her father spoke of, not a god in a sun boat, but a vessel of light and metal breaking apart in the heavens. She saw the fragment, burning with celestial fire, carving the very valley the temple now sat in. She saw the first men, skin dark from the sun, touching the strange, cool metal with reverence. And she saw a lineage of knowledge, passed from a star being to a woman, from that woman to her daughter, a thread of secret wisdom running parallel to the dynastic history of kings and conquerors. She understood. The pharaoh's power was not to rule, but to be the bridge, the anchor between this ancient, cosmic memory and the mortal realm. She was not a queen. She was a guardian. Canute's vision shattered like glass. The harmonic hum was broken by a discordant sound, the clang of bronze on stone, and a shout from outside. Bayek. She opened her eyes, the celestial light fading, replaced by the flickering orange of torches. Standing in the entrance, his shadow monstrously long, was Tahotep. Behind him were a dozen hardened mercenaries, their eyes glinting with greed. At their feet lay Bayek, wounded and struggling, but alive. Such a touching display of primitive magic. Tahotep sneered, his voice dripping with condescension as he strode into the sacred space. Did you truly think you could hide from me? I have scrolls that describe this place, child. While you were following vibrations, I was following maps. He looked around the stark chamber with disappointment. No gold, no grand power to be unleashed, just an echo in a stone room. His eyes fell on the dagger, still humming softly on the pedestal. No matter. The symbol is what matters. With this blade and the story I shall weave around it, the priests and the armies will see me as the true heir to a power older than the pharaohs. He gestured to his men. Kill the guard. Bring the girl and the dagger to me. Canut's fear was washed away by a cold, clear anger. He didn't understand. He saw only a tool for earthly power, a prop for his ambition. He was about to profane this sacred place, to silence the song forever. She grabbed the dagger from the altar, its hum now feeling like an angry hornet in her hand. You will not touch it, she said, her voice echoing with the sanctum's power. You are not worthy to hear its song. As the mercenaries advanced, Canut held the dagger aloft. She didn't assume a fighting stance. Instead, she closed her eyes and sought the hum once more, not the harmonic chord of communion, but the original, pure, piercing tone her father had first taught her to find. The single, resonant frequency of the dagger itself. Taotep laughed. A final prayer, little princess? He mocked. Canut ignored him. She found the tone. And then, using the sanctum as an amplifier, she poured all of her will, all of her focus, into it. It wasn't a song. It was a weapon. The single, pure frequency erupted from the blade, not as sound, but as a wave of pure, silent vibration. The torches flickered and died as if starved of air. The mercenaries froze, their hands flying to their heads, their eyes wide with confusion and pain. The vibration resonated with the iron in their blood, the water in their bodies, creating a disorienting, agonizing vertigo. It did not harm Canut, who was attuned to it, nor Bayek, whose fierce loyalty somehow shielded him from the worst of it. But Tahotep, whose ambition and ego were a discordant symphony, was struck hardest. He shrieked, a thin, unmanly sound, as the silent song tore at his sanity. He stumbled backward, clutching his temples, his mind filled with the shrieking chaos of a power he could not comprehend or control. He fled, blundering into the darkness, his mercenaries scattering in terror behind him, driven mad by a sound they could not hear. Canut held the frequency until they were gone, then collapsed to her knees, exhausted. Bayek helped her to her feet. She looked at the dagger, now quiet in her hand. She knew then that its power was too great for any one person to hold. It could not be part of any kingdom, new or old. With Bayek's help, she sealed the entrance to the sanctum, burying it with rock and sand. She then traveled to a remote village, entrusting the dagger not to a king, but to a humble family of stonemasons, telling them only that their descendants must guard it, unheard and unseen, until the stars called for it again. The secret of Princess Canut was safe, fading from history into the quiet anonymity of legend.